Can I have the attention of all the members? Call the meeting to order. Welcome to meeting number 17 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Citizenship and Immigration. Given the ongoing pandemic situation and in light of the recommendations from the health authorities, as well as the directive of the Board of Internal Economy on Thursday, November 25th, 2021, to remain healthy and safe, all those attending the meeting in person are to maintain 2-meter physical distancing, must wear a non-medical mask when circulating in the room, and it is highly recommended that the mask be worn at all times, including when seated. Must maintain proper hand hygiene by using the provided hand sanitizers in the room. Please refrain from coming to the room if you are symptomatic. A reminder that all comments should be addressed through the chair. When you are not speaking, your mic should be on mute and your camera must be on. Pursuant to Standing Order 1082 and the motion adopted by the committee on February 1st, 2022, the committee is resuming its study of differential outcomes in immigration, refugees, and Citizenship Canada decisions. It is my pleasure to introduce the witnesses for this important study. Today, we are joined in person by Sabrina Ghaffar Siddiqui, Professor and Member, Ontario Steering Committee, Canadian Centre of Policy Alternatives. We are also joined by MD Sharifuzzaman, Regulated Canadian Immigration Consultant representing Guide Me Immigration Incorporation. And the third witness for today's panel is Cheryl Ann Jordan, Chair, and also we are joined by Alex Salim Dugman Manzoor, the Co-Executive Director, Programming and Advocacy, representing Rainbow Refugee Society. Welcome to all the witnesses. Thanks for appearing before the committee to provide your testimony on this important study. With that, I would like to welcome our first witness, Sabrina Ghaffar Siddiqui. All the witnesses will be provided 5 minutes for their opening remarks, and then we will go into round of questioning. So we will begin with Sabrina Ghaffar Siddiqui, representing Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives. You can please begin. You will have 5 minutes for your opening remarks.
Good morning. I have provided Stephanie with some data and research, but in the interest of time, I'm only going to share my reflections with you today. I think it's important for us to ask what our preoccupation with and predisposition towards the point system of immigration is doing to what immigration is really about, which is building healthy communities. The Canadian Index of Well-being is rooted in Canadian values. It begins with the belief that our cornerstone value is the principle of shared destiny, that society is best shaped through collective action, and there's a limit to how much can be achieved by individuals acting alone, or what I will add, even being alone. If immigrants, and therefore immigration, is actually going to be successful, it has to be successful within the community development concept. Which brings us to my first point about the relationship between values and policy. Family reunification has become a mode of migration that the system is clearly very skeptical about, hence the policing, regulation, and securitization of it. And yet, if our Canadian values were reflected and entrenched in policy and the way that policy is enforced, the question of reunification would be central to it. We would want to build wholesome, healthy communities. We would want immigrants to be in healthy relationships. There is research that shows that people who come here through family class migration do better because they don't have to deal with the same level of integration challenges. Sadly, we have commodified the support, for example, through ESL, job search support, etc. But we continue to scrutinize the family reunification process. We must remember that we are dealing with human beings for whom having relationships and a sense of belonging begins with family. So my first point is that we need to center this notion that family reunification is the most important mode of migration. My second point is about the self-fulfilling prophecy of cynicism. Immigration policy has been criticized of being skeptical of applicants from certain regions. However, I argue that the way the program is being run, it appears to operate more from a place of cynicism. Some of the biases and microaggressions that have been found to penetrate within the department amongst the people who are doing this work will naturally reflect in their assumptions and predisposition towards people who they think want to cheat the system. For example, when looking at an applicant from rural Botswana, where relationships and marriages are done quite differently, we not only use a Canadian standard to evaluate the genuineness of that marriage, we use an ethnocentric, biased, discriminative viewpoint and expect to find liars and cheaters because of the racial stereotypes associated to that region. If you run a policy with the assumption that the preponderance of those going through the processes are cheating, then that means you are either biased, you are finding what you are expecting to find, or that the outcome of that process of unification is flawed. The primary purpose of the policy should be to reunify people, not to find cheaters. However, the number of resources that are put into trying to prove that these relationships are not real is disproportionate. If something is happening on the margins, we can't have entire regions subjected to the same standard. It is rare that someone coming from the US or Europe is subjected to the same requirements of proof. Rejection rates from these countries are also very low. But is that because the marriages are genuine or because the applicants aren't expected to be liars, so they are not asked to provide further proof or scrutinized? Confirmation bias can lead to finding something you are looking for. The problem would then be the policy and the biases of the people running the policy and the choices they are making in those moments of discretion. So how do we ensure applications are being treated fairly? Firstly, we need to invest time and energy into identifying the problem. We need to obtain data to show the percentage of reunification cases that are subject to extraordinary demands over time and where these cases predominate. A standardized, normalized demand without any data or policy to support the extra measures taken for some regions should not be sustained as the norm. The research also has to be carried out by racialized researchers. I'll explain more about that later. We also need to ask ourselves, what's the value of asking the perpetuator about the persistence of a phenomenon? If we want to know if immigration officers are microaggressing people, we shouldn't be asking the immigration officers. The methodology needs to center the voice and experience of the victims. I'm going to skip some stuff. Now moving on to my last point to consider, looking at the complaints from inside the department, we see there are people within these spaces raising alarm bells about the potentially racist culture environment of these spaces, which points us to diversity, equity, and inclusion. We need to diversify the pool of officers so there's more cultural translation in the department. The other thing is anti-racism training. Training should not be delivered with the expectation that it will eradicate racism. I can tell you it likely won't eradicate racism. What it will do is provide an accountability system so that we can hold people to account. There's also good and bad training. Online module training is bad training. In-person training is good training. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ghaffar Siddiqui. We will now move to MD Sharifuzzama, representing Guide Me Immigration Incorporation. Mr. Sharifuzzama, you can please begin. You will have 5 minutes for your opening remarks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, witnesses, please accept my greetings. May Allah peace be upon you. I'm an RCIC practicing mainly in Saskatchewan for Guide Me Immigration Consulting Incorporation. Let me start with the CIMM program with an employment offer, which is, I felt that extremely affected by the, racism behavior by the IRCC, differentiating different countries and applicants from different countries in many different ways. The economy of Saskatchewan is severely affected by the unreasonable lengthy processing time for the PR and temporary work permit applicants supported by the mentioned programs. The primary goal of this program is to facilitate employers with international skilled worker to fulfill the immediate labor needs. However, considerable number of ASINP supported work permit applicants, mostly from Bangladesh, India, and few Asian countries, are denied every month, mainly for a very common reason. Quote, I'm not satisfied that you will leave Canada at the end of your stay based on your personal asset and financial status, purpose of visit, or ties with your country of residence, or current employment or travel history. Even though the applicants are dual intent and the primary goal is to become permanent resident, refusing those applications based on those grounds considered absolutely unreasonable and unfortunate to many Canadian employers. As a result, the helpless Saskatchewan's employers and the economy continuously suffer from unpredictable labor supplies that have no real-time relevance to market needs. Madam, I would like to bring your attention to the fact that the applicants who applied through the online PR portal outside Canada are not receiving the AOR yet, even after 16 months of applying while those who have applied for PR applications from inside Canada or some European or Western countries, they already received their medical request. So expecting in few months, they will get their confirmation of PR, unlike other Asian countries. Let me focus a little bit about the caregiver program that can be an example of mistreatment to those foreign workers who work hard to protect the vulnerables of our community. Unfortunately, the senior and childcare pilot programs have become a humanitarian crisis for those helpless workers who is separated from their families, out of a job, medical assistance, and has no clear pathway to become permanent resident. Some of them are outside Canada in the middle of nowhere, as the employment situation may have changed over this long delay. Dear Chair, international students are considered a quick fix to the economy. Many Bangladeshi students complain about the discrimination in their application process for not having an advantage of the student direct stream program, despite Bangladesh and Canada having long and robust economic ties. I also received significant number of feedback from my clients that the study permit approval rates are higher in some, if someone is applying to Ontario, British Columbia, or Quebec. If we look at the statistics, we'd see that the number of students who get study permits in those provinces is extremely higher than in Saskatchewan. As a result, Saskatchewan is deprived of economic benefits from international students and also receives significantly fewer postgraduate workers to the labor force. Finally, I want to bring your attention to the entrepreneur programs. Entrepreneurs, investors, and proven successful business people across the world wish to bring their own funds, skill sets, and business knowledge to invest in our country. Of course, this program has an escalated growth in job creation than any other immigration programs. Unfortunately, there are only few underperformed immigration programs Canada offers, unlike other developed countries such as England, USA, or Australia. The Canadian entrepreneur programs are completely complicated, lengthy, and absolutely full of policy barriers. The unfavorable situation is pushing away those investors and innovators to other countries. We are searching for jobs. We are trying to increase the job opportunities, but opposing those investors who can create those opportunities. In my opinion, we need those entrepreneurs with equal immigration priority or even higher priority to compensate the unforced and economic pressure from the other immigration programs. Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sharifuzzaman. We will now proceed to Mr. Dagman Manzoor. He will be representing Rainbow Refugee Society. Mr. Dagman Manzoor, you will have 5 minutes for your opening remarks. You can please begin.
Thank you very much. On behalf of Rainbow Refugee, thank you for the opportunity to address the committee. Sherilyn, Jordan, and I are joining you from the unceded and traditional territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. Rainbow Refugee is the proud steward of the National Rainbow Refugee Assistance Partnership. With our collaborators in the Rainbow Coalition for Refuge, we have created LGBTQI supportive sponsorship circles in 25 communities across Canada. Our testimony reflects 22 years of direct work with people seeking refuge from persecution related to their sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression. In a global context where the persecution against sexual and gender diversity is pervasive, backlashes against LGBTQI communities are on the rise, particularly in war zones. Canada must fulfill its international human rights commitments to provide fast and accessible pathways to safety and communities of belonging for LGBTQI refugees, irrespective of their ethnic background, race, country of origin, or geographical location. How do we measure human life? Is the life of an LGBTQI person from Ukraine more valued or more worthy of protection than the life of a queer person fleeing Uganda, Sri Lanka, Ethiopia, or Afghanistan? Our experience shows that they face vastly unequal possibilities for pathways to safety. An LGBTQI person from Ukraine can get to Canada faster on a temporary visa and be eligible for settlement services, while an LGBTQI person in Afghanistan does not have this option, and there is resistance in providing them with TRPs for travel. Rainbow Refugee, as the steward of the Rainbow Wrap, saw firsthand massive discrepancies in processing times and standards between applicants for sponsorship from Africa and South Asian countries compared to those from Europe or the Middle East. In 2017, Ugandans who fled the Kill the Gays bill faced 6 to 8 years wait times. Afghanis in Pakistan 5 years, while other regions could process applications in 1 to 2 years. In view of these disparities, Rainbow Refugee advocated for equity in processing times and safer pathways for LGBTQI refugees in Kenya. In 2019, with IRCC, we piloted a pathway using a VIVOR program. By 2020, initiatives to equalize processing times were starting to work, but we fear that resource allocation for the return of operational capacity after COVID will again reinforce racism. We have also seen discrepancies in how applications are processed. The assumptions visa officers bring to their scrutiny reflects unconscious bias, overt stereotyping, or ethnocentrism. Officers apply Western expectations based on LGBTQI identities and communities as if they were universal, treat bisexuality as if not fully a queer category, or they may scrutinize applications for fraud based on nationality alone. Further, we cannot forget that the refugee pathways does not start when people arrive to Canada. Canada's policies like interdictions and the Safe Third Country Agreement prevent people who need protection from reaching or crossing our borders. This measure makes refugees more vulnerable to exploitation and abuse, making it more dangerous, particularly so for LGBTQI refugees from Global South countries. IRCC collaborates with CVSA, an institution with the power to stop people from entering the country, detain, or deport. We have noticed that refugees from African countries are far more likely to be detained. Anti-Black racism is further exacerbated for those who are gender diverse or trans. Officers' evaluation of who is a threat or who is unlikely to appear is prone to unconscious bias or stereotyping as well. CVSA powers to detain and deport people has a major negative impact on LGBTQI refugees that lasts into settlement. People are afraid to call police out of fear that their information will be shared with CVSA. Some endure violence rather than call. Trans women of color are disproportionately impacted. And yet CVSA remains unaccountable to any civilian oversight body. Any effort to address systemic racism in our immigration refugee system must create civilian oversight for CVSA. To conclude, systemic racism profoundly constrains the life chances of queer and trans refugees, manifested in policies, pathways, scrutiny, and supports that enable or constrain their mobility and settlement. Systemic racism cannot be measured against intentions. We must look at the impact of the policies and their implementation. IRCC commitment to enacting anti-racism must bring an intersectional approach that includes LGBTQI refugees and addresses disparities in pathways and emergency response, bias and assumptions in the scrutiny of applications, and border policies and practices. Thank you. Both Charlene and I look forward to your questions later on.
Thank you. Thanks to all the witnesses for their opening remarks. We will now proceed to our round of questioning, and we will begin our first round with Mr. Redekop. Mr. Redekop, you will have 6 minutes for your round of questioning. You can please begin.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to all the witnesses for being here today and sharing with us. I want to start with Mr. Srivazuman from my riding of Saskatoon West, actually. You brought up the caregiver program, and it's an issue that both me and my colleagues in the Conservative Party are talking about. And, of course, it's important to many immigrant groups, whether it's Filipino, Bangladeshis, all kinds of people. And I've had actually, I think, about 50 tweets about this in just the last few days. Now, you spoke of mistreatment. Can you explain a bit more what you mean about the mistreatment that's happening in the caregiver program?
Mr. Sharifuzama, you are on mute. Can you please unmute yourself?
Thank you, Redekop, for asking this important questions. So I would say, I mean, when it comes to caregiver program, these programs were offered in 2018, and there are many applicants from inside Canada and outside Canada. They chose this program to come to Canada, serve our vulnerables, with the hope that after a few years, a few months of experience, they will be able to submit their PR application. They will be able to bring their family members to Canada. But unfortunately, what happened, the priority of the IRCC has shifted to the other programs. And definitely, I understand that COVID had a serious impact in the business, but I don't know how and why, where the other part of the government is functioning really pretty well after this COVID situation. But still, immigration, if you look at the situation, the work efficiency of the immigration is a matter of question. So what happened, this program is completely neglected by the IRCC, and these people, they had a valid work permit and they had requested for an extension. They asked for the valid status, but their application is pending. There's no decisions on their application, which is why they couldn't even, renew their health card and other facilities, basic facilities they need from inside Canada, from the social service departments. So what happened? They're living in a situation where they do not have any hope. They do not have anything. They have left their family over 4 years, and they can't even see their family members. So I would say, unlike other programs, such as spatially, as you mentioned, that the people from Philippines and other countries, they are the majority people who came to Canada under this program, especially Bangladesh and India as well. And I received over 200 inquiries in last 2 weeks, and they're requesting us to look at this matter. So I would say, the way we are focusing on other economic class and other program, we should always care about these people as well, who are giving their best to protect our community and the vulnerables.
Thank you. You also mentioned the study permits from Bangladesh, and you talked about discrimination in their applications. Could you speak a little bit more about what you mean there?
Yeah, thank you, Redcup. So what happened, if you look at this situation, there is a specific stream. It says a student direct stream that helps a student to submit their application even in a lower score. If someone has 6 and let's say if they can prove that they can transfer 10,000 Canadian dollars and prove that they have a 10,000 Canadian dollars as a guaranteed, investment in Canada, if they can show that GIC certificate, the possibility of getting the study permit become very higher, because that's how the visa officer think that this student has money to support the education. Unfortunately, students from Bangladesh, even though, as I mentioned, that we have Canada and Bangladesh have a very strong and robust, economic and cultural tie since a very long time. But unfortunately, there are many students and academic institutions who helps our students to grow and have higher education from Canada. And we can expect them to come to Canada to have higher education, but the nature of the immigration, when they're assessing their application, the mindset they feel that, okay, all the documents they are giving just to find an opportunity to come to Canada and stay here. Dear member, if you realize it, we help every student who comes to Canada by supporting them in many possible ways so that they can become part of our economy and they try to stay here. But unfortunately, few students, those students who are applying from Bangladesh, they're examined in a way that, okay, they are just trying every possible way to come to Canada. And I don't know why we can't let them come to Canada, even though they have enough proof of financial support, they have sufficient funds. So that's why I feel that this Bangladesh is discriminated like other countries who has that eligibility to submit application through direct student program.
So just in the last little bit of time, we're studying racism specifically at the committee here. Have you seen any evidence of racism that you can share with us?
Yes, absolutely. I saw the applications were refused, even though like I submitted over let's say 50 or 60 study permit applications. I found some study permit applications from other nationals, they are approved in 7 days. But the study permit applications we have applied where the student's ability and ability to prove the requirement of the study permit is even higher than those students who got the study permit got declined after 6 months or 5 months, despite the fact with the reason saying that, okay, we have doubts that you will not return to your home country after this study. You don't have a travel history. Sometimes the reasons are very...
Sorry for interrupting, Mr. Sharifuzzaman. Time is up for Mr. Redekop. Thank you. We will now proceed to MP Ali. MP Ali, you will have 6 minutes. You can please begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is to Dr. Sabrina. Thank you for your time, and thank you what you do for the community. My question is regarding that, like immigrants worldwide start life in one culture, and after immigrating, spend the rest of their lives in another, generally quite a different culture. They start off as insider in their culture of origin, with an understanding of its norm and mores. After immigrating, they're outsider in the new culture and are able to maintain some insider status in the subculture communities of their fellow immigrants from their country of origin. Is there any type of training we can offer immigration department personnel that would be effective in allowing them to share in the culture of origin insiderness of the applicants whose cases they are considering, or can they only be achieved by hiring immigration officers from among Canadians who are from those same ethnic and national subcultures?
Thank you very much for that question. I'll try and keep it as succinct as possible. So what you're speaking about is this idea of cultural competence training, which actually has received a lot of criticism over the years, because we've come to realize that no one can be competent in another culture. You could be aware, but you can't gain competence. So that's why my recommendations are more towards diversifying the pool of officers so that those who have already existing understanding and awareness of another culture can provide their experience and their expertise. And it's not for not having enough of these people in the department. We clearly know from the Polaro report that there are, diversity is okay. And I've heard this from even yesterday in a meeting. I heard from somebody working in IRCC that the composition of the department appears to be diverse. The problem is that the people in the decision-making roles, they are not from those cultures and those regions. So the people who have the power in making the decision aren't culturally aware. So this is why my kind of recommendations about training, I'm quite skeptical of training, because you can't really train someone in someone else's culture. But what you can do is train them in an awareness. And something that I was going to say but didn't have time for is that, these training modules that we have online, these diversity, equity, inclusion training modules, they're like, people just click to the next. They don't actually retain any information. It's very easy to get trained, get a certificate, but really know nothing about what you just read. So, my recommendation is for engaged training, which is more workshop style, where you have people who are conversing with other people, with other lived experiences, where you're posed ethical questions. As a professor, that's what I do in my classroom. I pose ethical questions that make people think outside the box. And by the end of the session, they understand a little better the other perspective. And again, due to the pandemic, I feel like ideas and perspectives are even more polarized, right? People are even more so on two ends, two extremes. The only way that we can come together is if we are engaged in discussion, in the same room, on the same web session, but, in conversation rather than some training module online. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Dr. Ghaffar. My next question is, in the next few days, I will be speaking with an organization in my riding, which the Minister of Mental Health has recently funded to operate a crisis line supporting the South Asian community across Ontario. Would you have any words of advice that I could pass on to them about dealing with mental health problems created by racism and Islamophobia?
Absolutely. And I think everybody in this room remembers the tragedy that took place in London, Ontario with the Afzal family. And one thing that I like to point to is that even though that was an incident of Islamophobia, we know that the person who committed the crime was coming from a place of Islamophobic hate. But one thing that people tend to not understand is that he actually didn't know if they were Muslims. He suspected they were Muslims simply by the way they were dressed. They were dressed exactly the same as a Sikh family would have been or a Hindu family would have been. So, Islamophobia actually impacts people from across regions around the world because there's a misunderstanding of who's Muslim, who's not Muslim. And Sikhs often are, just like the first man to be attacked after 9/11 in the US in New York was a Sikh man who was mistaken for a Muslim man, and he was shot and killed. So the point I'm trying to make is that South Asians, because of Islamophobia, as well as because of anti-South Asian, anti-immigrant hate, are on the receiving end of a lot of discrimination. And young people especially, coming of age and identity are even more so affected. So we are finding, even in my research, that young people are very troubled. They're very scared. I mean, if somebody's scared to even go out for a walk with their family, what does that say about their sense of well-being and belonging in Canada? So, yes, I agree with you. Those type of programs are very necessary, and we need to focus on them.
Thank you, Dr. Ghaffar. Madam, do you have? Oh, do you want to add something? So it's just 12 seconds, so please go on. Anything you want to highlight?
Oh, my God, 12 seconds. Yeah. It's great to be in this room with you guys. And I like that you laughed and made it more comfortable.
Time is up. It's really good to have you. Before I go to the next person, I think you are the first witness in person after 2 years. So it's really good to have you in person here among us. We will now proceed to Mr. Brunel Desap. Mr. Brunel Desap, you will have 6 minutes for your round of questioning. You can please begin.
Merci infiniment.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Great, fantastic panel this morning, and I don't have enough time to ask all my questions, but I'm very glad that you're here. Now, we're drafting an important report. Mr. Suripuziman, excuse me if I mispronounce your name, you were replying to my colleague from the Conservative Party that you had seen personally incidents of systemic racism. You didn't have time to finish your question, or your answer. Do so now. Well, do you have the interpretation now, sir? Can you hear the interpreter? You have to choose it.
Go ahead.
Vous repartez mon temps du début, Madame la Présidente?
I'll start the time.
Vous êtes...
Start the clock. Thank you. Thank you to the witnesses. It's an exceptional panel today. And, of course, this is a very, very important report for many of our constituents. So thank you very, very much. I'm terrible at pronouncing names, but Mr. Shuri Fazaman, you were responding to a question by my colleague Brad that you have seen yourself racism within the IRCC, and I'd like you to give you the opportunity to complete that answer.
I saw racism in many different ways, especially, as I said, the applicants or students who are applying from Bangladesh. The data shows that the performance of the Bangladeshi students in Canada, academic performance, and their commitment to the Canadian economy is significant and remarkable, despite the fact when students are applying with sufficient evidence to prove that they have ability to come to Canada and study. I mean, the reason we always see in the refusal is basically that you may, like the visa officer has a doubt that after finishing their study, they may not go back to their home country. As I said, like even though we spend a whole lot of money to make them stay in Canada and be part of our economy when they come to Canada, understand the law, the second thing is, like, even if you see that the visa officer, specific visa officer, has a capacity to assess the visa applications, some applicants from a very specific country who are eligible for a student direct stream program, they are getting their decisions in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. The whole family can live in peace, consider knowing the fact that they will be able to go to Canada and study. Whereas the students, where they're applying from Bangladesh, they're applying 5-6 months before of their expected to start in class 8, still they can take their decision because the visa officer found very busy with so many other applications. And sometimes those applications are transferred to other visa offices, such as in Vietnam or any other different countries. And definitely they have their priorities and they don't want to, I assume, I'm not 100% sure, the way they refuse the application feels like they don't even spend 5 minutes to read the whole applications, because the refusals literally talks exactly against the submission. So that's why I literally feel that, okay, yeah, this is a very clear example of discrimination when it comes to study permit from Bangladesh.
Merci. Ce qui m'amène à une question pour notre témoin qui est là en personne aujourd'hui avec nous, professeur.
Thank you. Dr. Sadiqi, you said in your presentation that we have to simplify the problem and the process. We're talking about subconscious or unconscious bias. Well, one must call a spade a spade. And as our chair has said, there is racism within the IRCC. We have to be able to label the problem in order to resolve it. Would you agree with that statement?
But being a professor, I've been trained to always say maybe, perhaps, possibly. So that's why I respond in that way.
OK, ben, merci. Vous avez aussi dit que
You've also said that studies within IRCC should be done from a member of that particular community for cultural purposes, obviously. Could you expand on that, please?
So there was a book released a few years ago. It's called Points of Entry. It was written by my PhD supervisor. So I read it because I had to, because he's my supervisor. However, I found a lot of flaws in his methodology and his research. He was looking at visa offices around the world. He went there. He sat with immigration officers to determine whether or not bias and racism takes place in these departments. His aha at the end was, there is no racism, right? So when I read that book as a racialized researcher, there were lots of things I was picking up on. You know, does he have the ability to see something that he has no experience with himself, right? So this question of insider-outsider researchers has come out, you know, for years, you know, and racialized researchers are always frustrated with the fact that our research, we're not really given the funding to do research about our own communities and our own cultural backgrounds because of this question of objectivity. Are we going to be objective? Which is offensive, you know, because we've been trained to be objective. So the point that I'm trying to make is that white researchers come with a certain set of assumptions, ideas, certain set of eyes and worldviews that I believe they're not capable of understanding a situation in its whole entirety the way that maybe a racialized researcher would. And that's why I think it's very important for someone from that critical race theory lens to come in and produce that research. Now, another point to make, because I'm a professor, I don't discard that research. All I'm saying is that let's have a balance of some research from white scholars, some research from racialized scholars, where we can say, oh, okay, so we have a range of ideas here.
Merci. Il me reste encore du temps, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much. A few minutes left, Madam Chair. In that case, I'd like to thank the witnesses. Perhaps I'll have a second go with a final question. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now proceed to Ms. Kwan. Ms. Kwan, you will have 6 minutes. You can please proceed.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you to all the witnesses. I really do appreciate hearing from all of you. I want to ask this question because every witness have raised this, both in this study and in the previous study as well, and that is systemic racism embedded within IRCC. And so the question then is, how do we get at it? There are different streams that we can always cite, whether it's the caregiver stream, to which definitely the government's approach in that stream is inherently biased and racist and discriminatory, in my view, because they're the only temporary foreign workers stream where they cannot bring their families to come until after much lobbying. And why can't they have landed status on arrival, as an example, when it's been proven that we actually need caregivers here in Canada? So from that perspective, what I think needs to be done, and I would love to get the perspective from all the witnesses, is whether or not the government should bring in an independent ombudsperson to examine all of IRCC's policies and its applications so that we can address the systemic racism within IRCC once and for all. So I will start with, Mr. Sharif Fuzuman first, and then we'll go to Rainbow Refugee, and then we'll come back to our witness here in person.
Thank you for the question. I would say yes, I entirely agree with the fact, but we cannot forget that the whole process may take a long time, and this program can't wait that long. I mean, the people who are affected, the temporary resident who are affected by this discrimination, they need immediate support. So definitely, yes, we can walk through that path, but on top of that, we need immediate attention by the IRCC to address this problem and solve it as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. To our witnesses, I don't know who will respond from Rainbow Refugee.
Thank you very much for the question, Sherilyn Jordan. I very much agree that we need to be looking at not just sort of the interpersonal or interactional racisms and microaggressions that can occur, but the systemic issue. And we've heard today how even just how much attention or resources a particular program or stream is given can create massive racist discrepancies. And so an ombudsperson would be well positioned to kind of champion that policy overview. For us from Rainbow Refugee, what would be important is that this person have a lens that is truly intersectional, so good critical race analysis, as well as having a gender and sexuality analysis to fully reflect the federal government's commitment to an intersectional gender-based analysis plus that is intersectional. Thank you. Alex, do you want to add anything?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to add that I believe that an ombudsperson would really help in this matter in addressing, well, where can we go when we're seeing that there is systemic racism affecting. But I also want to emphasize that as we go upwards into the directorship and management levels of IRCC, we don't see ourselves represented. I don't see LGBTQI racialized migrant people represented in decision-making positions at IRCC. And I feel that both of them need to go together. We need to have external oversight and an ability to assess what is going on internally in IRCC. And we also need to see representation in the decision-making power positions.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take some of the people who are, working in the departments at lower levels to bring them up and give them positions of authority so that they can assess. So reassessment of the same applications by racialized people or people from marginalized backgrounds, and what results would that produce? As a diversity, equity, inclusion consultant, something that I always say to people is that you can't have HR do DEI work. They're not your friends, right? They're not there for the employees. So you need to have an outside person to come in and do that. And so that's why I agree with you. I think an outside, objective, position on this is really important. The other thing I really believe in is blind evaluation, blind experimentation. I don't know if you guys know about that, but within academia, within research, we talk about blind experimentation as really important because it takes away the biases of the researcher. I am a product or a success story of blind examination. In high school, my predicted grades, I'm from the UK, as you can tell from my accent, we get predicted grades from our teachers, and then all our exams go to an external examination board where it's blind examination. I had all D's predicted, B's, C's, D's. I wouldn't be sitting here as Dr. Sabrina Ghaffar Siddiqui speaking to you all today if I didn't have an external board of examiners marking my final exams in which I received all A's. So that's just an example of how blind evaluation can produce drastically different results.
I think I may be out of time, but if I get another round or if I don't get another round, I would ask all the witnesses to submit to the committee in writing your suggestions on both short-term action that needs to be taken as well as the long-term.
Thank you, Ms. Kwan. We will now get into our second round of questioning. We will have 4 minutes each for Mr. Janice and Ms. Lalonde, and then 2 minutes each for Mr. Brunel Desep and Ms. Kwan. So, Mr. Janice, and I think you will be sharing your time with Mr. General.
That's right. So I'm going to talk really fast. Dr. Ghaffar Siddiq, many of our some of our determination processes are dependent on UNHCR processes. So if we're going to talk about racism and outcomes, we also need to look at the UNHCR determination processes. Do you have any reflections on whether there is systemic racism or other forms of racism in the UNHCR determination process that we need to take into consideration as well?
Not evaluated that area, so I wouldn't be surprised if there wasn't, I would be surprised if there was not racism taking place in any department or organization where the majority of the people in those departments are from the majority.
Okay,
of the community.
Fair enough. Are there any other witnesses that have expertise on that point? If not, maybe we should something we can ask future witnesses. I don't want to put anyone on the spot. If people want to follow up in writing on that as well. To the folks at the Rainbow Refugee Group, my understanding is that many of the refugees who come do so through the joint sponsorship mechanism, which is something that I think works very well. It brings together the involvement of private sponsors, but also it reduces the burden on them by having government money come to the table. And when you have private or joint sponsorship, it provides an opportunity for those sponsoring organizations to advocate and work with individuals who may be experiencing discrimination. Could you speak to the joint sponsorship model and how you found it to work in practice?
Thank you. I imagine that you are talking about the JAS program or the joint sponsorship assistance program.
Yes, exactly.
I believe.
Yeah. So in the Joint Sponsorship Assistance Program, it's a program that is designed especially to bring in people who may have more challenges settling in Canada, and so it's a government assistant refugee. They come as government assistant refugees, and then the IRCC has a partnership with a community organization, and in that community organization provides emotional support and other settlement supports to the person. Usually those sponsorships last 2 years, and we've been advocating from Rainbow Refugee to ask that trans people in general, racialized trans people in general, come through that program or are assigned that program, because 1 year of settlement support is not enough. Always is not enough for that to happen. We also have a cost-sharing model, which is the Rainbow Refugee Assistance Partnership, in which we are the stewards of that partnership. Through the Rainbow Refugee Assistance Partnership, we're able to bring, we have 50 cost-sharing spaces in a year, and what that means is the government provides 3 months of support and a startup fund, and there's a lot of cooperations between IRCC.
That's great. Sorry to cut you off. I have to share the last bit of my time, but just to really plug, I think that sharing model between government and private organizations is a great opportunity. It can leverage the best of both worlds, and we should think about using that model more. Over to you, Mr. General.
Merci beaucoup. Merci, Madame la Présidente. Madame Sabrina.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Madam Sabrina, there's your breath of fresh air you're bringing to us this morning with your frank presentation. Question I'd like to know, do you think that a human being compared to an algorithm which determines things in a software should decide who comes to Canada. Is there any difference in the results as far as you're concerned?
Of human beings as opposed to algorithms. But when I speak of blind experimentation, maybe that is something that is to be considered. The way that I see it is, why not try it and see what the results are? Why not try and then compare that if we use an algorithm, will it produce different results? At the end of the day, we're talking about human beings, so the preference is for human beings to assess the situations and circumstances of other human beings.
Les langues officielles, on est en train aussi.
Time is up.
Hein?
Yes. We will now proceed to Ms. Lalonde. Ms. Lalonde, you will have 4 minutes. You can please begin.
Merci beaucoup et j'aimerais vraiment...
Thanks once again, Madam Chair. I'd like to thank all of the witnesses, whether they're here in presence or in virtual.
If I may, the Polaro report indicated that experiences of racism at RRCC include microaggression as one area that affect the delivery of RRCC programs, policies, and client service. In your view, where should the department devote more of its attention to identify and resolve instances of microaggressions?
Are you suggesting whether it should be focused on employee experiences and feelings of belonging or applications? Is
Both.
that the comparison? Both. Okay. So if employees don't feel a sense of belonging and comfort and, we care about diversity, but we don't care about inclusion and equity, then the retention rate of people working in those departments is going to be very low. People are going to come in, they're going to leave. They're going to come, get a job, then they're not going to feel happy, they're going to leave. So you're going to lose people. And we need people to stay, to build that experience and to understand the system better, right? And we need those people then to provide that cultural translation, to then assess, to move up the ranks, and then to be officers who can assess better the applications. So I feel like you have to start with your family, right? You have to start with the people who are part of your family, which is your department, and then that family will then have more, the tools necessary to then work on the applications.
Thank you very much. And maybe in your experience, what forms of microaggressions fundamentally impact the decision-making process?
So my kind of main point that I will make about all of this is if there's a microaggression, which, I need to clarify in case people don't understand this, microaggressions don't mean that they are small. All they mean is they happen in small interactions, right? So when you talk about systemic racism, you talk about it happening on a large scale, on, big statistical analyses. Microaggressions is like more of a interactive, small-scale examination, right? So they're still really impactful, but then they're happening within, people's conversations. So, for example, when somebody's hearing that these are the dirty 30 countries, people from here are usually liars and cheaters, the person on the receiving end who is from one of those countries is impacted because now you are offending them as well. But it also shows that you have a bias, you have a feeling towards these people. So when you're then assessing the application, how can you tell me that that feeling is not somehow being incorporated into your decision making? So that's why microaggressions are important to consider. Also, in my studies and my research, I have spoken to respondents who spoke about microaggressions that took place 10, 15 years ago, as if it happened yesterday. So the impact of microaggressions is actually quite big and long-lasting.
Thank you. Okay, so I have a minute, and I would like to ask a question to the Rainbow Refugee witness. Now that some time has passed since the SOGI guidelines were implemented in 2017, how would you evaluate the SOGI guidelines in reducing the barriers faced by the LGBTQ2+ refugees? And in your view, as RRCC improve its refugee decision-making process, ensuring more fairness and respect for those applying for refugee statuses?
We have been very pleased with the way the SOGI guidelines were developed in terms of the amount of community consultation and their initial implementation, as well as their more recent review. What we would like to see is that guidelines like this be developed for other decision makers throughout the system. So in particular, the officers reviewing PRA applications. And I would really bring us back to some of the points Professor Gafir Siddiqui is making around the training, that we cannot rely on sort of cultural competence models. We need to have engaged, narrative, dialogued, workshop-style training for all.
Sorry for interrupting, Ms. Jordan. Time is up for Ms. Lalonde. We will now proceed to Mr. Brunel Desepp for 2 minutes.
Merci, je vais être rapide. Merci à tous les témoins.
Thank you. I'll be as quick as possible. I thank the witnesses first. I have a few questions for the Rainbow Society. I'm vice chair of a special committee on Afghanistan, so I'm going to speak perhaps my comments based on that Afghanistan knowledge. For anybody from the LGBTQ society, they're threatened, they're aggressed, they're assaulted. Amnesty International had a 43-page report on that situation. So if Canada is really concerned about these people, what more can we do here? You might be the best people to answer this question.
Sorry, thank you for that question. I believe that the emergency response that Canada had with the Ukrainian crisis, which was made flexible and allowed a lot of people to enter the country with a lot of flexibility and then get settlement services, should be applied equitably to other crisis situations. And in this case, with the Afghanistan situation and the LGBTQ people who are still inside Afghanistan, but also those who have made it out, so that we can bring them to safety to Canada, either through the PSR program or through an emergency program that allows them to come with flexibility and then deal with their applications and their processing more from the inside of Canada. We believe that there's more that can be done. We believe that equity in crisis responses is paramount to this work, and that we cannot be discriminating LGBTQ people just by their geographical location. So we believe that the model that has been implemented through the response to the Ukrainian crisis can be amplified and broadened to other crises, in particular to LGBTQI people who are in Afghanistan or outside of Afghanistan.
Il faudrait donc un mécanisme d'urgence.
So an emergency procedure should be in place, whether it's a natural disaster or war somewhere, anywhere on the planet.
Thank you. We will now end our round this panel with Ms. Kwan for 2 minutes. Ms. Kwan, you can please begin.
I just want to build on that question. With respect to refugees, one of the critical issues for people in Afghanistan is that they cannot get their biometrics done because it's just simply not feasible. Should the government waive the biometric requirements for Afghans until they're safely here in Canada? So to Mr. Minjar.
Well, I thank you. My last names are Dugman Mansour, but it's
sorry,
the other point. No worries. Yes, I do believe that they should be waived, and I believe that there are ways to make sure that I know that Canada is also concerned with safety, and there are other measures, that can be put in place to make sure that we're bringing people in safety, and we're also protecting Canadian society in that way. But I do believe that when there's an emergency, if there are barriers and we cannot overcome those barriers, we should put human life first and then deal with the obstacles.
Thank you. I want to quickly ask this question as well. For refugee determination requirements, the government requires that for the group of 5 refugee sponsorship, which makes it not feasible for a lot of people. Should the government waive the refugee determination requirement for all privately sponsored refugees? I'm going to go to everybody for this question. A quick answer, because I just saw the card going 1 minute. So.
Yes, I guess a government can, if you can completely, I'm see like there are some difficulties if we completely waive that criteria. But I think like 5G can be transferred to 2G or 3G. I believe that if two families, they have relative outside Canada and they want to help them to come to Canada under this protection, they should be able to support them. So 5G, I think, is a very big number and very hard to manage by many families. But if we can make it group of 2 families or group of 3 person, then it would be more, I think, like accessible.
Okay, thank you. With that, the panel comes to an end. Yes, Mr. Brunel de Sepp. Yes,
Oui, j'aimerais déposer une...
I'd like to table a notice of motion that we discuss this. I can read it to you if you like, Madam Chair. That the committee report what follows at the current. Given that Uyghurs and others in China are under the stress of a permanent genocide, third country individuals may be expelled back to China or be detained, tortured, or suffer other symptoms. We should extend the special measures immigration-wise to Uyghurs and other Muslims in China, and postpone the requirement for biometrics until they get into the country. Is this acceptable, Madam Chair, to point of order to table a notice of motion?
To ask for a point of order. He just raised his hand and I asked him. It was not a point.
Est-ce que je peux prendre la parole, Madame la Présidente?
May I have the floor, Madam Chair? May I have the floor, Madam Chair? May I have the floor, Madam Chair?
Floor.
Okay, donc...
Okay, so it's not a point of order, and I will speak. Now, before going in camera, that the committee will report the following to the House. Given that Uyghurs and other Muslims in China are threatened by permanent genocide, and those who are in third countries would be held and expelled back to China or exposed to a serious risk of torture or other bad treatment. That the following, that a special the special requirements for biometrics be waived until they get their travel documents and come into the country if they don't have travel documents, and that Uyghurs and others in third countries who may be expulsed towards science who seek refuge in Canada, and thirdly, to refer these refugee status to the CIMM.
A list of the people who would like to speak. I have Ms. Lalonde, Mr. Jenis, and then Ms. Kwan.
I will wait, merci. I'll wait.
Okay. Mr. Jenis?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess just a couple things first. I guess we're right into committee business, so I want to just maybe thank the witnesses, and I don't know if you want to take the opportunity to dismiss them, but thank you for the witnesses in any event. Mr. Brunel.
Sorry, we are not in committee business as yet. We
are
in a public meeting.
Fair enough. Yeah, no, I know.
The committee business,
I know we're still public.
For that, we have to log off from the public meeting and then log.
Yeah. No, I guess what I meant is I think we're done with the witnesses, so I just thank you to them. Mr. Brunel de Sepp, when the translators were reading the English version, it was slightly different than the text, but I don't think that's because the text is different. I just think it's because the translators were translating it on the fly. Can you just confirm that the text you read out is the same as that which was distributed? Est-ce que vous pouvez confirmer que les choses que vous avez lire étaient les mêmes?
Mr. Jenis, can you please direct all the questions through the chair?
Oh, okay.
Okay. So he's just getting a clarification. So in regards to the translation, Mr. Brunel de Sepp, can you please confirm that the text which you read is the same as which it was sent out in the notice of motion?
Perfect.
Je confirme, j'ai rien changé à ce que vous avez reçu un avis.
It is word for word what you have received.
Point to make. we strongly support this motion. I think it's very important. I think it's excellent. I want to congratulate my colleague on bringing it forward. We have one minor change to suggest, and that is just to further clarify subpoint C. We recognize that there are significant problems with the UNHCR refugee determination process in certain contexts, including in the context of the Uyghurs. I think all members recognize that there is a need for a determination process to occur, but that there are some issues in this particular case. So we're not calling for the abolition of a determination process, but we do think that there needs to be a recognition of the flaws in the process as they currently apply. So I would just propose, and I think just to be further clear about that point, I would propose replacing the word waive with replace. So point C would read replace the UNHCR refugee determination. So I think that's very much consistent with the intention, but I do think the existing language can maybe be read a couple different ways. So I want to propose that just for discussion as a possible amendment. Thank you.
Amendment proposed by Mr. Jenis on the floor now. So he has proposed to replace the word waive with replace. So C would read as replace the UNHCR refugee determination. Is this what, Mr. Garnett, you have proposed, Mr. Jenis?
Est-ce que ça serait... pardon, Madame la Présidente.
I have Ms. Kwan next, and then we will come to you. Ms. Kwan.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Speaking first then to the amendment, I would not support that amendment. It is not to replace the refugee determination process. It is to waive the refugee determination process. There is a distinct difference if you were to replace that versus to waive it. For all the other privately sponsored refugee processes, it is waived. And so I would strenuously oppose this amendment. The other piece, then, just speaking to the larger issue, I support this amendment. I support this motion. My apologies. I support this motion. Absolutely, there's no question. It has always been the NDP's view and my view that the government should apply special immigration measures equitably to all the different groups faced with conflict in different regions and persecution in different regions. We are seeing a distinctive difference with how the government's applying those measures with Ukraine versus, for example, we were just talking about it in this committee today with Afghans. And it is wrong. And it is wrong, and it should not be done that way. As a witness from the Afghan committee, the Special Afghanistan Committee had indicated, is our blood not the same than that of Ukrainian nationals? And we have to answer that question truthfully with humanity. And the answer is absolutely yes, it is the same. And if we want to stand on the podium to say that Canada cares and that we would apply humanitarian measures to people who face persecution, then we need to apply equitably those measures accordingly. So I would absolutely support this motion. And by the way, this motion is not inconsistent with the press release that was issued by the chair a few weeks ago, because in that motion, it calls for the government to apply that to all the regions. And it gave some examples, but those examples was never meant to be exclusive of other groups. It was just simply some examples. And so to that end, I would absolutely support the motion as tabled by Mr. Brunel Desept, and I would reject the amendment accordingly. And further to that, I would also ask, Madam Chair, that you respond on behalf of the committee to the Uyghur Project email that was sent to us, where they were concerned that the committee's motion that was passed a few weeks ago excluded them. I think it is very important to indicate clearly that it was not an exclusive motion, but rather it includes everyone. But with that being said, this additional motion does not detract from that last one. It simply states clearly why this should be done in this instance. Finally, I guess once we vote on this amendment, I have a amendment to move myself because I think what's really important is that we get a response from the government on the motion that Mr. Bruno Duceppe
Sorry for
has
interrupting, Ms.
moved.
Kwan. Right now we have an amendment.
Yes, I know.
So
I'm not,
we cannot go.
I'm not moving the
yes,
amendment.
so,
I'm just telling
yes.
the committee members that I intend to move an amendment once this other amendment is dealt with.
Yeah, so first we have to deal with the amendment which is on the floor, and then we can go further.
And I'm not moving amendment. I'm just putting these words up on the record for consideration, and at the appropriate time, I will move the amendment. And these words are to ask and to add, and that pursuant to Standing Order 109, the government table a comprehensive response to the report, just so that we get an official response from the government to your motion, to Mr. Bruno Duceppe's motion.
Okay, thank you. Next on the list is Mr. Brunel Duceppe, then Mr. Janis, and then Mr. Dhaliwal.
Est-ce que, là, je ne sais plus quel amendement je dois parler, mais c'est...
Well, we'll talk about the last amendment there, the response of the government. The report will probably occur before we debate the thing in the House? Okay, due process, I don't know where we're at, so. Madam Chair?
Madame la Présidente, veuillez excuser.
Madam Chair, please forgive me if I did a breach of process. I think it's my colleague Garnett that has the floor, so I'll come back to it.
Madam Chair, based on the comments of Ms. Kwan, I think we actually agree on the. I think I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth, but I think we might be agreeing on the policy, but maybe want to sharpen. I might want to sharpen the wording a little bit because my hope with the amendment was simply to clarify that yes, we agree the UNHCR determination process has problems. There needs to be an alternative domestic process, and that applies in other cases. So I guess I just want to put it out there. If, as an alternative to the wording that I proposed, if we said waive the UNHCR determination and use the domestic determination process that applies to other immigration categories. So I put that out as a point of discussion. I do think it's helpful in terms of clarity. I think those who are following.
Sorry for interrupting, Mr. Janis. You cannot make a change.
Correct. No, I know that. I'm just brainstorming in my comments with the committee.
You have moved an amendment,
correct.
So we have to deal with it. You cannot change.
I understand. I am suggesting that. I just want to kind of see where people might be at with respect to that because. I'm not wedded to any particular wording, but the idea is, and I think in any event, the discussion around this clarifies that there does need to be a determination process. The UNHCR process has problems with it. There needs, in any case of people coming to Canada, to be a determination process. That's maybe what could be clarified by this. Again, I mean, if the amendment's defeated, that's fine. I won't lose sleep over it, but I do think that the clarification, either in the text of the motion or on the record, is helpful. Thanks.
Thank you. I think this debate is getting a bit longer, so maybe I can thank the witnesses and keeping in mind their precious time. If they want to leave, they can leave the meeting. So thanks to all the witnesses for appearing before the committee today. Your testimonies were really very important, and thank you on behalf of all the members. So we will continue this debate, and if the witnesses would like to leave, they can leave.
Madam Chair,
Madam Chair. Thank you,
before the witnesses leave, I wonder if you can just express to them that they could provide a submission in writing to the questions that they were not able to answer, particularly due to time limitations.
If there is something you would like to bring to the notice of the members and you were not able to bring it today because of the lack of time, you can always send your written submissions to the clerk of the committee and they will be circulated to all the members. So thank you once again, and if you would like to leave, you can. Thank you. Next on the list is Mr. Dhaliwal. Mr. Dhaliwal. You are on mute, Mr. Dhaliwal.
Here we go. I think it's better to be on mute today. Madam Chair, I would ask, because now you already dismissed the witnesses, I was going to ask to vote on the amendment so we can get it out of the way, and because Madam Kwan has made a great intervention, and let's vote on this to support Mr. Bruno Decep's motion.
Their hand raised. We can now go for a vote on the amendment proposed by Mr. Janice. Madam Clerk, if you can please take the vote.
Mr. Ali.
I vote against the amendment.
Mr. Dhaliwal.
No.
Mr. El Khoury.
Contre.
Ms. Kayabaga.
I vote against.
Madame Lalonde.
No.
Mr. Benson.
I vote yes.
Mr. Genuis.
Yes.
Monsieur Généreux.
Wait.
Mr. Redekop.
Yes.
Monsieur Brunel Duceppe.
No.
Ms. Kwan.
So the amendment is defeated. So we are back on the motion proposed by Mr. Brunel Duceppe. Ms. Lalonde, you wanted to speak?
Wanted to speak.
Okay. Can I have the attention of the members, please? Can I have the attention? The amendment proposed by Mr. Janice is defeated. We are now on the main motion proposed by Mr. Brunel Duceppe. Ms. Kwan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to move the amendment that pursuant to Standing Order 109, the Government Table Comprehensive Response to the report, to add that to the motion. Mr. Bruno Duceppe was just raising the concern, though, that the government will have 120 days to make that response, and so therefore the action might be delayed. I recognize that, but of course the government can take action even now, right? And not necessarily wait for a response. But from my perspective, where I think this is important is that I think it's important to get the government's response on record. So to get a written response from them. These are the kinds of things that the government will talk about for a very long time, and then they don't do anything. But this will compel the government to provide a written response, which I would like to see. But this does not. By requesting the response, the written response does not stop the government from taking action prior to that response. Because in that response, they can say, we already took action, which would be fantastic.
Ms. Kwan, now we have an amendment proposed by Ms. Kwan. Mr. Janice.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to propose a sub-amendment to Ms. Kwan's amendment. So I'll just get that on the record and then explain the rationale. So it would be to revise her response to say that the government be asked to provide a comprehensive response by letter. This is a mechanism that we've seen in past committees, and I think it achieves the best of both worlds. It requires and expects a government response. But it allows the House of Commons to proceed to take action in the meantime. I've read a lot of committee responses from government. There's a lot of we take note of, we take note of, we take note of. So the government's going to have to respond in one way or the other. But I think seeking that more timely response from the government by letter to this committee and also allowing for parliamentary action to proceed in the meantime is, I think, the best way to go forward. So I'll propose that sub-amendment that I think, again, gets at the best of both worlds.
Thank you, Mr. Janice. Can you please exactly repeat the wording, what you are proposing?
What I'm proposing is the following, that the government be asked to provide a comprehensive response by letter.
Thank you. We have a sub-amendment proposed by Mr. Janice. Mr. Brunel Duceppe.
Madame la Présidente, vous savez à quel point
Thank you. I really adore it when we have a consensus, and I think that we can all work together Everybody contributes an idea. We began with an amendment and a sub-amendment and a motion to begin with. I think, and I would suggest quite strongly to all members of this committee to work as closely as we can. The public's out there listening to us. The fate of the Uyghurs is of concern to all of us. It would also give them a sense that we are working for them, that we are concerned. So thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Seeing no further debate, so we will vote on the sub-amendment proposed by Mr. Janis. Madam Clerk, if you can please take a vote. Ms. Lalonde.
Sorry, and I apologize for my delay. Can the clerk provide just a little bit of the procedural element about the sub-amendment by Mr. Genuis about what it means in terms of reflecting to the proposed amendment from Mrs. Kwan versus what Mr. Genuis is asking us?
Thank you, Ms. Lalonde. So the clerk would provide a clarification in regards to Ms. Lalonde's question.
What I heard from the sub-amendment is that that's in addition to Standing Order 109. So that's not replacing the obligation to report back to the House. Mr. Genuis is asking to add.
No, that's not correct. I'm proposing to revise the language that she had. She's proposed one response mechanism. I'm proposing to amend it to provide a revised response mechanism. So
no reference to 109?
So no reference to 109, correct. Because just to be clear, the reference to 109 means that a tabled response means that there could be no debate on this in Parliament or concurrence in of the issue for a substantial amount of time, which means there'd be no way for Parliament to act on this report until almost the end of the year. So I think a requirement for the government to respond by letter to this committee prevents us from having that four-month delay. And just hearing some of the conversation, my understanding is it's a number of sitting days, not just. So we would be, maybe the clerk can clarify Standing Order 109 how that
Yes,
applies. I just think we can give ourselves the greatest possible opportunity to move this forward at a parliamentary level while also requiring a government response by letter. I think that's the best way to proceed. Thanks.
Okay, so just to clarify in regards to Order 109, it says government response to committee reports. Within 120 days of the presentation of a report from a standing or a special committee, the government shall, upon the request of the committee, table a comprehensive response thereto, and when such a response has been requested, no motion for the concurrence in the report may be proposed until the comprehensive response has been tabled or the expiration of the said period of 120 days. That's Government Order 109.
Madam Chair, if we can just clarify, that's 120 calendar days, not sitting days. Calendar days. Okay. Yes. All right. So it's not as far off as I thought, but it still does.
It's 120 days of the presentation of a report from a standing.
Yeah, I maintain the point that any delay isn't desirable, but I appreciate the clarification. Thanks.
Just one second. Can I have the attention of all the members? Just to clarify one thing, I've consulted the clerk of the committee. So Ms. Kwan moved to add that the government provider response to the report based on 109. What Mr. Janice is proposing is changing that. So you are proposing a sub-amendment and you are changing that. I don't think so that's like the right thing to change what she has done. So if you think that the letter has to be issued, maybe that can be an amendment after we deal with the amendment which Ms. Kwan has proposed. So that can be separate because you will be changing what she has said based on this 109.
On a point of order, Madam Chair,
Yes, Ms.
I need
Kwan.
some clarification from the clerk. Is there can we not ask for both so that we actually ask for a comprehensive report and then in addition to, for a more speedy response, that we also get ask for a response by letter?
Okay.
Like, why we can't?
Madam Chair, point of order. Can I just propose that we suspend for 5 minutes to confer privately? That actually might speed up the process overall.
Yes, we can suspend the meeting for 5 minutes.
Okay.
So we have a sub-amendment which was proposed by Mr. Janis on the floor. So if we can please begin. Mr. Janis.
I think there was just a request for me to read it again, and there was also a suggestion that I add that we add a timeline, but we can't sub a sub. So we need to vote on the sub-amendment first, and then we can discuss a timeline after that. So the revised would remove the reference to Standing Order 109 and would instead say that the government be asked to provide a comprehensive response by letter.
So we have a sub-amendment which has been proposed by Mr. Janis. Seeing no further debate on that, we will take a vote on the sub-amendment proposed by Mr. Janis. Madam Clerk, if you can please take the vote.
Mr. Ali?
I vote against the amendment.
Mr. Daliwal?
No.
Monsieur El Khoury?
Contre.
Madame Kayabaga?
Contre.
Madame Lalonde?
Contre.
Mr. Benson?
In favor.
Mr. Genuis?
In favor.
Monsieur Genereux?
Pour.
Mr. Redekop?
In favor.
Monsieur Brunel Duceppe? Ms. Kwan?
For.
Six yeas, 5 nays.
So the
Those agreed to.
sub-amendment. Okay, so the sub-amendment passes. Mr. Janis and then Ms. Lalonde.
Okay, as promised, I'd like to add another sub-amendment, just to add the words "within 30 days" to the end of the existing amendment. So within
Okay,
30
so we
days.
have another sub-amendment to add the words "within 30 days." Okay, Ms. Lalonde.
I was just going to ask the clerk to read the new motion as it read, but that's okay.
We're not voting on it, so let's go vote. Get it out of the way.
Any clarification you need?
No, I'm good.
Okay, so we can go into the vote on the sub-amendment proposed by Mr. Janis. Madam Clerk, if you can please conduct the vote.
Mr. Ali?
Against.
Mr. Daliwal?
Against.
Mr. El Khoury?
Contre.
Madame Kayabaga? Madame Lalonde?
Contre.
Mr. Benson?
In favor.
Mr. Genuis?
In favor.
Mr. Genereux?
Pour.
Mr. Redekop?
In favor.
Mr. Brunel Duceppe? Ms. Kwan?
For.
Six yeas, 5 nays.
So the sub-amendment passes. So now we have the motion as amended on the floor. Ms. Lalonde?
Just point of order, did you say the motion as amended or the amendment? We're still on the main amendment, right?
We have, sorry for that, sorry, just to provide clarification, we are on the amendment as amended. Proposed. The amendment was proposed by Ms. Kwan as amended after the two sub-amendments. Ms. Lalonde?
Well, thank you very much, Madam Chair. And if I could ask indulgence in bringing an amendment to the amended motion that Mr. Brunel Duceppe brought in, if I could read it.
So you are proposing a sub-amendment to the amendment proposed by Ms. Kwan?
Yes.
Okay. We are on the amendment as amended.
Yes, thank you,
Bit
Madam
confusing,
Chair.
but
Thank you. A little confused now.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll read it very slowly. That the chair not table the report to the House until the government letter has been provided and that the letter be included.
So Ms. Lalonde has proposed a sub-amendment to the amendment which was proposed by Ms. Kwan, that the chair not table the report until the letter is provided. That's Ms. Lalonde. This is what you're proposing?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Kwan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't think I can support this amendment because the purpose of this is for the chair to table the report when the committee has voted on it. And then for the minister to respond. And then we would get that response, but not the other way around. It shouldn't be, the process should not be driven by the minister for us to get the response before we table it. So I don't think that would be appropriate.
Okay, seeing no further debate, if we can vote on the sub-amendment proposed by Ms. Lalonde.
Mr. Ali?
Yes.
Mr. Dhaliwal?
In favor.
Monsieur El Khoury?
Pour.
Ms. Kayabaga? Madame Lalonde?
Pour.
Mr. Benson?
Against.
Mr. Genuous?
No.
Mr. Genereux?
No.
Mr. Redekop?
Against.
Monsieur Brunel-Duceppe? Ms. Kwan?
Against.
Six days, 5 yeas.
Okay. So the sub-amendment proposed by Ms. Lalonde is defeated. So we are back on the amendment proposed by Ms. Kwan as amended. Okay. Seeing no further debate, can we please take a vote on the amendment proposed by Ms. Kwan and as amended by the sub-amendments by Mr. Janus?
Monsieur Ali?
No.
Okay. Just we will get it read by Madam Clerk before we proceed to the vote.
Just so it's clear to everyone, it is to replace, what was voted on was to replace the request for the 109. Everybody's in understanding? And so it's to request a government letter in addition to Monsieur Brunel-Duceppe's motion.
Within 30 days.
Within 30 days.
Timeline of that. Mr. Janus?
Yeah, so just for further clarification, it would specifically add the text that the government be asked to provide a comprehensive response by letter within 30 days. It would add that text to the existing motion, which hasn't been otherwise amended.
Is everyone clear? Can we vote on that? Yes, Ms. Lalonde.
I just wanted to know 30 days of what? I just want a clarification from the clerk or you, Mrs. Chair, Madam Chair.
So it will be like after tabling the report, 30 days from tabling the report. Yeah. Yeah, 30 days after I table the report in the House. Within 30 days. Is it clear, everyone? Okay. So can we please take the vote?
Monsieur Ali?
No.
Mr. Dhaliwal?
No.
Monsieur El Khoury?
Contre.
Ms. Kayabaga? Madame Lalonde?
Contre.
Mr. Benson?
In favor.
Mr. Genuous?
In favor.
Mr. Genereux?
Wait.
Monsieur Redekop?
Support.
Monsieur Brunel-Duceppe? Ms. Kwan?
For.
Six yeas, 5 nays.
Okay, so the amendment proposed by Ms. Kwan and as amended by Mr. Janus passes. So now we have the main motion which was proposed by Mr. Brunel-Duceppe as amended. So we have that on the floor. Okay, seeing no further debate, if we can vote on the motion as amended.
I think there might be unanimous consent, Madam Chair.
You would like to have a vote taken? Okay. We will have to take the vote. Madam Clerk, if you can please take the vote on the motion as amended.
Monsieur Ali.
Yes.
Mr. Dhaliwal.
In favor?
Monsieur El Khoury.
Pour.
Ms. Kayabaga. Madame Lalonde.
Oui.
Mr. Benson.
In favor?
Mr. Genois.
In favor?
Monsieur Genereux.
Oui.
Mr. Redicott.
Support.
Monsieur Brunet-Duceppe. Ms. Kwan.
For.
$11 yeas.
Okay, 11 yeas. The motion as amended passes. Just 1 second. Okay, so thanks to all the members for today's meeting. Because we have a hard stop at 1 o'clock, we don't have the services available, so we cannot go to the in-camera portion now. So for next week, what I am proposing is that... Thursday? Yes, so this Thursday. For this Thursday, for our next meeting, what I'm proposing is that we start with committee business, because we have to discuss the travel options, as the proposals have to be submitted before May 6th, and then we go into the consideration of the draft report. So we will park the drafting instructions for this report for now, because we have to get this report completed. So that's, if members agree, then the notice can be issued. Ms. Kwan.
If you can, Madam Chair, provide clarification for committee members on when officials will come before the committee from the last motion that was passed, and that's for us to answer questions related to systemic racism within IRCC and to receive undertakings from the committee members.
The clerk has been in touch with the officials, and we are trying to schedule that meeting. It will be either 3rd or 4th. We are trying that if we can have an additional meeting. So that meeting with the officials will be either 3rd of May or 4th of May. Okay. As soon as we can confirm that we have the ability to have an additional meeting, we will confirm and let all the members know.
And one further question from the clerk then. With respect to the current study that we are doing right now, we've received the evidence of
summary of evidence
from the clerk's office. So when do we expect that we would have when do we expect for that report to be drafted?
Okay, so for that, first we have to give the drafting instructions. Earlier we had proposed that we will do it on Thursday, but today, because we have not been able to go through the consideration of the draft report on the acceptance rates for the international students, I am proposing, so that we can complete that report and table it in the House, that we deal with that report first on Thursday, and then we will come. The clerk is in touch and will let me know about the meeting which we can have with the officials, whether it is 3rd or 4th of May. Once I have the confirmation of that and whether we can have the additional meeting, I will work on the calendar for the upcoming meetings, and then we can inform the members. So I think we will be in a position to inform the members by Thursday. Okay, Mr. Brunel-Duceppe.
Oui, merci pour tout. Je vous remercie.
Thank you. I want to thank all the members of the committee for a great session. Could the chair share the motion with us, that's the complete text as we have it, so that we all have it fresh in our minds? Final version?
Do we have the final version? Final version of the text, the motion? Yeah, we will get it to translate that. Okay. We will get the translation done for the final version, and then we will circulate it to all the members. Okay? So, is it the will of the committee to adjourn the meeting? Yes. Okay. The meeting is adjourned.